July. That doesn't do anything, that just.
Well, it looks like the live stream is working.
Hey, this meeting is being live streamed, yes.
Oh,
Okay.
Well, I've got it on my Kindle.
There you go.
All right.
But that's all I could say.
Hey, bud,
Just.
you hear us? Can't hear
We
anything?
can hear you, we can hear you, we can see you. You guys are fine.
Okay.
Well, I've got it on my Kindle.
There's an echo in here.
is that Debbie on the Kindle?
I guess so.
Yes,
A little different, so it's not as easy to.
that was the echo of Debbie on the Kindle.
Ah. I've got it on my Kindle is what I said
Oh, it's you.
a
Okay.
while back, yeah.
The
I
sound,
don't know why it's echoing.
the sound on the Kindle isn't. It's hard to recognize the voice.
Mhm.
So,
All right. Well, we are successfully started, only 5 minutes late. The Lord be with you.
and with
Oh,
thy
with that
spirit.
spirit.
Let us pray. Direct us aright, O Lord, in all our doings, by thy most gracious favor, and further us with thy continual help, that in all our works, begun, continued, and ended in thee, we may glorify thy holy name, and finally, by thy great mercy, attain everlasting life through Jesus Christ, our Lord.
Amen.
Well,
All right, we finished letter 20,
Did.
so we are on letter 21. Who would like to start?
I'll start.
ladies first.
Ladies
Okay.
first. Outstanding.
Mine would. Yes, a period of sexual temptation is an excellent time for working in a subordinate attack on the patient's peevishness. It may even be the main attack as long as he thinks it the subordinate one. But here, as in everything else, the way must be prepared for your moral assault by darkening his intellect. Men are not angered by mere misfortune, but by misfortune conceived as injury. And the sense of injury depends on the feeling that a legitimate claim has been denied. The more claims on life, therefore, that your patient can be induced to make, the more often he will feel injured and, as a result, ill-tempered. Now, you will have noticed that nothing throws him into a passion so easily as to find attractive time which he reckoned on having at his own disposal unexpectedly taken away from him. It is the unexpected visitor, when he looked forward to a quiet evening, or the friend's talkative wife, turning up when he looked forward to a tete-a-tete with the friend, that throw him out of gear. Now, he is not yet so uncharitable or slothful that these small demands on his courtesy are in themselves too much for it. They anger him because he regards his time as his own and feels that it is being stolen. You must therefore zealously guard in his mind the curious assumption, my time is my own. Let him have the feeling that he starts each day as the lawful possessor of 24 hours. Let him feel as a grievous tax that portion of this property which he has to make over to his employers, and as a generous donation that he further portion which he and as a generous donation that further portion which he allows to religious duties. But what he must never be permitted to doubt is that the total from which these deductions have been made was, in some mysterious sense, his own personal birthright.
And why is that a delusion? Isn't our time our own?
Oh.
Let's put it this way. What are the criteria of ownership? How do you know you own something, that it belongs to you?
That you can control it.
You can do what you want.
You can control it. You can make it.
Mhm.
Can you make time?
No.
No, only in the colloquial sense.
We're-
Not in the literal sense. Can you control time?
We're visualizing it as a possession, as a thing, and it actually is a sequence, and who knows what's going to come in your path,
Exactly.
except for God.
You just
You have
imagine.
you have little control. You can control yourself and what you do with your time, or what you do in time, rather, but you can't control time, and it is not yours. It doesn't belong to you. In the final analysis, nothing really does. Everything is held in, Thomas Jefferson used the wonderful word usufruct, which is an antiquated legal term meaning leased. And he was speaking of the earth belongs to the living as a lease. And it's one of the bases of a duty to receive from our forebears and pass on to our descendants, because it doesn't belong to us. It is a trust. And he was speaking of citizenship specifically, but it's really true of everything, including the way we behave, the way we work in time. But of course, what Screwtape wants, where'd it go? It's just there. Okay. Wrong browser. What Screwtape wants in particular is to fester in the patient, is to have Wormwood have Wormwood's patient festering with resentment. And the way to start that is make him feel that his time is his own, and whenever he has to deal with another person, he is effectively being taxed by having his property removed. So that is what is going on. Who would like to read next?
I will.
Excellent. Here we have, he's going to say what I just said, but in a much cleverer way.
You have here a delicate task. The assumption which you want him to go on making is so absurd that if once it is questioned, even we cannot find a shred of argument in its defense. The man can neither make nor retain one moment of time. It all comes to him by pure gift. He might as well regard the sun and moon as his chattels. He is also, in theory, committed to a total service of the enemy. And if the enemy appeared to him in bodily form and demanded that total service for even one day, he would not refuse. He would be greatly relieved if that one day involved nothing harder than listening to the conversation of a foolish woman. And he would be relieved almost to the pitch of disappointment if for 1/2 hour in that day the enemy said, "Now you may go and amuse yourself." Now, if he thinks about his assumption for a moment, even he is bound to realize that he is actually in this situation every day. When I speak of preserving this assumption in his mind, therefore, the last thing I mean to do is to furnish him with arguments in its defense. There aren't any. Your task is purely negative. Don't let his thoughts come anywhere near it. Wrap a darkness around it, and in the center of that darkness, let his sense of ownership in time lie silent, uninspective, and operative.
Remember that in a previous letter, Screwtape told Wormwood that you younger devils seem to think that it's our job to put things into the patient's head. But in reality, most of what we do consists of keeping things out. Keeping things out of people's heads, keeping us from thinking about the way the world really is, about the way everything really is, including time. So this is an example of that. Quick bits of, did it again. Quick bit of vocabulary. What is a chattel?
Chattel's property.
Yeah, anything you own. It actually comes from the older version of the word for cattle. Okay, when the greatest thing a person could own was a milk cow, okay, or a beef cow. So that's where that comes from, or the words are related together. It's It's like usufruct. It's a great word.
Chattel slavery was where your slaves were actually regarded as your own personal property and you could do what you wanted with them.
Right. Right. That's the whole idea behind.
Different than Old Testament slavery.
I feel like usufruct could be a word that you use at work and people really wonder what the heck you're saying. Oh, usufruct.
Couldn't you think of time as how you spend your time? Like you've been gifted a certain amount of time, which is your time on the earth, and you choose to allocate it to events or things or people, and you're sort of spending it. And you
Well,
only
that's the metaphor that we tend to use, right? Time is money, so we save it, we save time, we spend time,
we spend time, yeah.
we waste time.
But we forget the gifts of time that others have given to us. And when you're thinking along these lines, then you don't want to share that time. And that's, I think, one reason why a lot of people aren't having children.
Yeah.
Because they steal your time.
Yeah.
They might give you a wrinkle.
Heavens,
yes. Yeah, it's which is interesting since nothing sucks time away like social media. And unlike having children, it doesn't really give you anything back.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're not learning, we squander time.
Speaking of time, how much of our time does God tell us in Holy Scripture he wants back from us?
what does he say?
Marty says 1 day a week.
Yeah, 1/7 of our time.
Yeah.
He only wants 1/10 of the property he's given to us on the promise that the 90% that's left will be more than adequate for us, no matter what. That's the tithing rule. And it's interesting to make the comparison that unlike our goods, our earnings, God values our time even more.
I feel like Paul would want a bit more than that, though.
Yes. 1/7 of our time is just to get us used to the idea that we're not in control of time. And the time, in fact, does not belong to us. Okay? What we do during the day is up to us. That's true, but it does not belong to us.
Well, this thought is going around in my head too. This doesn't apply to you, Father, but one of the reasons that most of us decided to give our time to morning and evening prayer was because, in COVID, we had lots of time.
True.
We didn't really do that as a gift to God, really, when you think about it. It's just like, might as well.
Well, that's a place where the commercial metaphor really does work. When you have an abundance of time, giving some of it away to something seems less burdensome. And one of the things that modern living has done is busy us, make us in some ways endlessly busy and always feeling like we need to be more busy, that we're not spending our time wisely.
But I actually rush home from work because I can just make it look at the lesson, because I really don't like to make mistakes, and then be there. And it means for me, the same thing as Sunday, that I might be, and there we are.
Yeah.
Open, and everything changes. So it's not really a gift I'm giving. It's I'm receiving. I'm getting, yeah.
Yeah. And we are sharing something, and we sanctify time by worship and by prayer. And that is what the Sabbath is all about, the sanctification of time. God making us see what time really is, that it is His, and that when we look at it as a possession, we don't enjoy it as much. The more possessions you have, I mean, the less value each of them has in some ways. Because, of course, the law of supply and demand doesn't just apply to your goods. It really does apply to everything when you're considering value, when you're thinking in terms of value. And the best way to break that really is in your head is sacred time, understanding sacred time. The Mass should seem like it's been going on forever, but that it just started when it's over. Right? Both. It fills everything and is over too soon at the same time. That's the idea behind sacred time. Oh, I did it again. I keep opening.
And the more you feel like you have a smaller supply of time, the more valuable it becomes.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's, Charlie, why don't you read the next portion, which I suspect will deal precisely with that question, if I can.
How about this? Would you like?
No, I can read it.
Okay, very good.
All right. The sense of ownership in general is always to be encouraged. The humans are always putting up claims to ownership which sound equally funny in heaven and in hell, and we must keep them doing so. Much of the modern resistance to chastity comes from men's belief that they own their bodies, those vast and perilous estates pulsating with the energy that made the worlds, in which they find themselves without their consent, and from which they are ejected at the pleasure of another. It is as if a royal child, whom his father has placed for love's sake in titular command of some great province, under the real rule of wise counselors, should come to fancy he really owns the cities, the forests, and the corn, in the same way as he owns the bricks on the nursery floor.
Yeah, keep going.
We produce this sense of ownership.
Oh, sorry.
Not only by pride, but by confusion. We teach them not to notice the different senses of the passive pronoun, the finely graded differences that run from my boots through my dog, my servant, my wife, my father, my master, and my country to my God. They can be taught to reduce all these senses to that of my boots, the my of ownership. Even in the nursery, a child can be taught to mean by my teddy bear, not the old imagined recipient of affection to whom it stands in a special relation, for that is what the enemy will teach them to mean if we are not careful. But the bear I can pull to pieces if I like. And at the other end of the scale, we have taught men to say, my God, in a sense not really very different from my boots, meaning the God on whom I have a claim for my distinguished services and whom I exploit from the pulpit, the God I have done a corner in.
Done a corner in sounds like cornered the market. You've got him in the corner. He belongs to you. And that is quite a scary concept.
The old English phrase to make a corner means to combine in order to control the price of a given article and thus secure enormous profits.
Right, that's what cornering the market is.
Cornering, yeah.
This is one of my favorite passages from this book, especially the sentence. And he's talking about chastity.
Mhm.
Okay? And an enormous amount of modern philosophy actually begins with the assertion that we own our bodies,
You got that. Yeah.
Good.
which is kind of funny because we never bought them, did we?
Oh, no, thank you.
Did you buy your own body? Did you make your own body?
No, you did not.
Okay. Uh,
But we don't want anybody else to own it.
true, true. Yes. This is a good illustration of the ontological sense of words being
Mhm.
important. The shape of our being is that we do not own ourselves, that is a false metaphor.
It's a gift.
It is a gift. Our being is a gift. We cannot make ourselves. It is a negative truth that no one else should have a greater claim on your body under most circumstances than God. Although for the first 18 years of your life, you are under parental governance, right?
Mhm.
And guess what?
It's a good
That
guess.
doesn't stop when you're 18 because the obligations are mutual. You can be wicked and deny that fact and fail to honor your mother and father. That's what honor your mother and father in the Ten Commandments means. It just doesn't mean, oh, I have a sentiment in their favor. Yes, I think more highly of them than of anyone else. No, it means the obligation is mutual. And that is inherent in the nature of things. It's ontological. It's in the shape of creation. So where we begin our thinking is very important. You're going to have a much different sense of, you're going to be excluding other people from controlling you in a much different way and in a much different sense. And you're going to understand marital obligations, okay, in the sense that you are one flesh, and that has consequences that aren't just spiritual. It cannot be abused, as it often is, especially by men, but not exclusively. But if you begin from that set of values, you are going to, for instance, the belief, and this is now the conventional wisdom of our culture, that children are a choice. They didn't used to be. It just happened. And I would put forward that the greatest change, that's the greatest change of recent history, is that attitude that children have become essentially a consumer commodity. You quite literally have to have enough money in order to have them, or it's irresponsible. So that's why if you have a lot of children, you're committing some kind of wrong against them, first of all, which is ridiculous, and against society, because how are you going to care for them all? Well, we're going to care for each other. And not everybody has to go to an Ivy League school, and not everybody has to become an elite. And that really is the attitude. Somebody put it very well recently. I'd have to find that quote. It was very, very telling. Okay. And the great line, the finely graded differences that run from my boots through to my God. And we can teach them, the devil says, to reduce all of these senses to that of my boots, the my of ownership.
This is the I, it versus I, thou.
Yeah, that is a similar argument that's made. The difference between those two things is between individuals versus members of a body. You're speaking very differently if you are both members of a body, and especially this distinction, not the old imagined, the teddy bear is not the old imagined recipient of affection to whom it stands in a special relationship, which is what God would have the child in the nursery do with that fantasy. But my teddy bear means the bear I can pull to pieces if I like.
Right.
That's pretty scary. And people can easily turn their relationship with God into that kind of relationship.
Mhm.
Especially clergy. When you work for the guy and you feel like you're all that, because, you work for the boss, you work for dad, he must be really great, right? No, we're being punished. No, we're being disciplined. Bishop Morris used to always say we wear black because it's the color of our heart.
Well, that teddy bear, this is my teddy bear to rip apart if I want. And when you decide that you can rip life from your body,
Yes.
that leaves a void, just like that teddy bear is going to be ripped apart. And unless somebody tidies up and gets it out of sight, that child is going to see that. And,
Yep.
I think.
We learn what we live.
Yeah.
The next time someone says, it's my body, I can do what I want with it, there's two things you can say depending on the context. One is, no, it's not. It's been bought and paid for by Christ
Mhm.
through his sacrifice of the cross. It may only matter if the person thinks of themselves as a Christian. Right? And the other response, perhaps outside the church, it's my body, I can do what I want with it. Just ask, why? Because trust me, nobody's been thinking that through in a long, long time.
Yeah.
Why do you think your body is yours? The only reasonable answer you'll hear is, well, it's not anybody else's.
Mhm.
So you're like abandoned property. Is that what you're saying? So you may as well pick you up and use you because you don't want anybody else to. That's a rather shallow existential philosophy.
I think you see that reflected in the rise of tattooing.
Yes.
People think it's my body, I can do whatever I want with it. I can cover my entire body with purple ink,
Yeah.
which to me seems strange. I mean, your body's a gift and you shouldn't, it's God's gift. You shouldn't mutilate your body. In fact, if you went out in public and cut yourself in all kinds of places and then said, it's my body and I can just do this, people wouldn't agree with that.
And they wouldn't emulate it.
No, and they would call 911 or something.
Right.
This idea that, yeah, people have really dumb ideas.
And they spread like wildfire and become the norm.
They
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
In Judaism, it's prohibited.
Mhm.
It's biblically prohibited in the
Yeah.
Mosaic law.
Yeah.
Thou shalt not paint thyself as do the pagan.
Mhm.
Also in the Old Testament, you're not supposed to tattoo yourself.
Right.
Yeah,
In the
that's
Old
what I meant.
Testament. Yeah.
Leviticus, I think.
Right.
My father reinforced that.
Yeah. You are not your own canvas.
Right.
You are God's canvas, and he is painting you in time. And he can erase you.
And will one of these days.
And will one of these days. And it's not going to happen when you want it to.
Yeah, I find it very alienating when I come across like our waitress last night, we went out for a celebratory dinner. She was really sweet, but she had these weird rings on her nose.
Yeah.
And I just feel like that's so weird. It's hard for me to relate to why would you do that? It seems so strange to me that I find it hard to
Yeah.
be
The
in a-
answer, Charlie, is that everybody her age is doing it. So
Right.
it's not weird.
Mhm.
for
In
her.
fact, it's at this point, it's weird not to, at least on this coast.
Yes, I know, but I find it, I think it is alienating to people who find it
Yeah.
odd, and you create these divisions in society that are not harmonious.
Yep. There's people with body piercings and people with mortgages. So, and perhaps never the twain shall meet. Speculating.
I just always think, have you thought this through? I mean, that's what goes through my mind. Have you really thought this through? You know?
I saw a very elderly woman the other day who had tattoos and had clearly for a long time, and they had turned to mud on her arm. They were just like blotches on her arm. And people don't realize that those tattoos, after 2 decades, the pigment starts to wander around your body.
Mhm.
It's terrible.
Yeah. All arguments against. Well, let's see how he finishes this. Bud, you can't read, right? We can't hear you. Yeah, okay. No problem. Monty, Debbie, do you want to read or?
Read body, or shall I?
I'll read.
A temporary one.
Excellent. We're finishing the letter here.
And all the time, the joke is that the word mine in its fully possession cannot be anything that exists, and especially of each man. They will find out in the end, never fear, to whom their time, their souls, and their bodies really belong. Certainly not to them, whatever happens. At present, the enemy says mine of everything on the pedantic, legalistic ground that he made it. Our Father hopes in the end to say mine of all things on the more realistic and dynamic ground of conquest.
Oh,
Your affectionate uncle, Screwtape.
Ouch. Remember, the enemy is God and our father is the devil.
Devil.
Yeah.
It's confusing.
On a more realistic and dynamic ground of conquest.
Nothing Putin.
Wow. Yike. Yike. That is really
And
scary.
yet Screwtape still says, your affectionate uncle.
we
Yeah.
pondered that.
It's as if they have some, it's as if they have some positive emotions underneath everything.
Well, affectionate in that sense is akin to hungry,
I was thinking that, yeah.
because that's what the devils do. In fact,
Right.
in Screwtape proposes a toast, which is a short piece that Lewis wrote after the war for a new edition of the completed Screwtape letters. The conceit is that it's a toast at a large banquet table of the denizens of hell, the demons and all the others, and there are different wines, and the wines are the souls of the damned. So he says we're going to have this vintage of here's a little Hitler, here's a little Stalin, here's a little because yes, that's what the demons do. When God consumes you, he consumes you with a consuming fire that does not consume, but that instead makes you live forever. When the devil consumes you, you're gone.
Forget it.
Yeah.
I think when
And
he says your affectionate uncle, we have to take that as very ironic.
Yes.
He actually holds no positive feeling towards his nephew.
Your affectionate uncle,
Right.
Screwtape.
Well, other than the old team spirit, they are on the same team.
They are on the same team. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, they are.
Yeah. My team, no matter what.
Indeed. Okay, let's
Says
start
the Cubs
the next
fan.
letter. What was that, Monty?
Says the Cubs fan.
Yes. Yes.
I understand the Yankees are doing very poorly this year, but the Red Sox are very happy about that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now we go back to we carry forward the theme of chastity. What is chastity?
It's
Well, sexual
refrain from sex, I think.
Sexual what? Purity?
purity.
Yeah.
I think you're still considered chaste if you are having sexual relations with your
In
husband.
marriage, yes.
Yeah.
Chastity, the older term for it, or a related term, is continence. And that's a term we still use, but only in one very narrow sense.
Yeah. Yeah. But
About and what it means is incontinence means you are unable to control the boundaries of your being. Okay?
mhm.
Physically, when you need diapers, morally, when you are unchaste.
Mhm.
To be unchaste is to have forbidden sexual relations of any kind, and
Yeah, I think it has a more expanded meaning, even though if you say
it has a metaphoric meaning regarding all kinds of things. Yeah,
this experience has chastened me, what does that mean?
it
That-
means that in that experience you have discovered your boundaries.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, you have rediscovered your borders. You have understood your own overreach.
Mm-hmm.
Because unchastity, incontinence is ever expanding.
Mm-hmm.
It's involved with gluttony. It's involved with greed.
Mm-hmm. Prudence.
Yeah, these are all forms of incontinence, moral incontinence.
Prudence.
It's funny how some of these terms have been reduced in precisely the way that Screwtape speaks of. Patsy, would you start this one?
Okay. My dear Wormwood. So your man is in love and in the worst kind he could possibly have fallen into, and with a girl who does not even appear in the report you sent me. You may be interested to learn that the little misunderstanding with the secret police, which you tried to raise about some unguarded expressions in one of my letters, has been tided over. If you are reckoning on that to secure my good offices, you will find yourself mistaken. You shall pay for that as well as for your other blunders. Meanwhile, I enclose a little booklet just issued on the new House of Correction for Incompetent Tempters. It is profusely illustrated, and you will not find a dull page in it.
You remember that Screwtape a few letters back, at the beginning of the letter, apologized for the lack of clarity of some of his previous remarks.
Mm.
It might have seemed as if he was speaking positively of the enemy.
The enemy.
Oh,
So apparently, of course,
He was reported on.
yes, he was reported.
yes.
By
Because of
what?
course, when you're in when you're in a chaste relationship is like the burning bush. It burns but is not consumed. Okay? An unchaste relationship involves the burning to an ember of both parties. And not just a sexual relationship, but any kind of relationship. In this relationship between demons, their real goal is to consume one another, right? So it is a perpetual competition, and the one who wins is the one who conquers, meaning that he absorbs the other party.
It's interesting that he speaks about the secret police,
Yes.
which I think must come out of Nazi Germany and Soviet Russia.
Yeah.
I don't think they had secret police.
Not in Britain. No.
Not,
Well, I would trust
I think
not.
during the war they did. They had,
Oh, yeah.
during the war, they had counter-espionage officers who were secret.
Right.
So,
That's a far cry from what totalitarian
right.
regimes have created all over the world. But it
Well,
makes sense that since we think of those regimes as hell on earth, that they
Mhm.
make a good model in literature for hell itself.
Right, and he wrote this in 41.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's during the early stages of the war.
Yeah.
All right. So, whoop. Okay. It's your turn. Whoops. Sharon.
Yes. I've looked up this girl's dossier and am horrified at what I find. Not only a Christian, but such a Christian. A vile, sneaking, simpering, demure, monosyllabic, mouse-like, watery, insignificant, virginal bread and butter miss. The little brute. She makes me vomit. She stinks and scalds through the very pages of the dossier. It drives me mad, the way the world has worsened. We'd have had her to the arena in the old days. That's what her sort is made for. Not that she'd do much good there either. A two-faced little cheat, I know the sort, who looks as if she'd faint at the sight of blood and then smiles, then dies with a smile. A cheat every way. Looks as if butter wouldn't melt in her mouth, and yet has a satirical wit. The sort of creature who'd find me funny, filthy insipid little prude, and yet ready to fall into this booby's arms like any other breeding animal. Why doesn't the enemy blast her for it if he's so moonstruck by virginity, instead of looking on there, grinning? He's a hedonist at heart. All those fasts and vigils and stakes and crosses are only a facade, or only like foam on the seashore. Out at sea, out in his sea, there is pleasure and more pleasure. He makes no secret of it. At his right hand are pleasures forevermore. Ugh, I don't think he has the least inkling of that high and austere mystery to which we rise in the miserific vision.
Stop there. Stop there for a second.
Beatific, miserific, miserific.
Right. The beatific vision is the highest state, is the best thing that can happen to a human being in this life. It is a perception, it is a direct perception from God of the world to come. The great saints of the 13th century, Saint Thomas Aquinas and Saint Francis of Assisi, both experienced this. And Thomas Aquinas, who was the intellectual of the two, the one who wrote philosophy, when this happened to him, he referred to everything he'd ever written as straw.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
all just straw. But it wasn't a lament. It was a recognition of reality, that the real reality is something much, much greater.
That's okay. We're still enjoying his straw.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
We're still.
At his right hand, there is pleasure forevermore, is from a psalm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, C.S. Lewis is on a roll here.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
The preceding paragraph is like,
indeed.
whoa.
I just wanted to stop that so we understood the miserific vision is the opposite of the beatific vision, a direct vision of hell.
I think that C.S. Lewis is telling us his ideal woman who looks demure. She's beautiful. She's, she is
Simple.
spiritual, and she's got a sense of humor, and she would laugh at the devil. He's
Yeah.
enjoying that.
Indeed. Why don't you finish the paragraph?
Let's see.
He's vulgar.
He's vulgar, Wormwood. He has a bourgeois mind. He's filled his world full of pleasures. There are things for humans to do all day long without his minding in the least. Sleeping, washing, eating, drinking, making love, playing, praying, working. Everything has to be twisted before it's any use to us. We fight under cruel disadvantages. Nothing is naturally on our side. Not that that excuses you. I'll settle with you presently. You have always hated me and been insolent when you dared.
So he's about to go back to the topic at hand, but yes, that was a
Let's
magnificent.
not forget the key item here.
That was a magnificent soliloquy on
Yeah.
of the demonic, and he has said occasionally he says things that actually are true. He says them by way of complaining about them. He has filled his world with pleasures. There are things for humans to do all day long without his minding in the least. And then everything has to be twisted before it's any use to us. That's a very important truth. There isn't a single pleasure or good thing that the devil can make. He has to pervert that which is good, right? Which means that the 7 deadly sins are the 7 cardinal virtues twisted. Every sin is a virtue twisted. You have done something off kilter. You've done something turned in such a way. That's what pervert means. It's turned in a way that's sort of against itself. And there are all kinds of signs that that's happening, if it is, or at least there were. I love it. I'll settle with you presently. You've always hated me and been insolent when you dared.
There we go.
Psalm 16, verse 11.
Ah, thank you. Yes. At his right hand, there is pleasure forevermore. Psalm 16. Thank you. Charlie, you want to, whoops, wait a minute.
Now, where are we?
Last line of 43 and top of page 44 here.
Then, of course,
Then, of course, he gets to know this woman's family and whole circle. Could you not see that the very house she lives in is one that he ought never to have entered? The whole place reeks of that deadly odor. The very gardener, though he has only been there 5 years, is beginning to acquire it. Even guests, after a weekend visit, carry some smell away with them. The dog and the cat are tainted with it. And a house full of impenetrable mystery. We are certain, it is a matter of first principles, that each member of the family must in some way be making capital out of the others, but we can't find out how. They guard as jealously as the enemy himself the secret of what really lies behind this pretense of disinterested love. The whole house and garden is one vast obscenity. It bears a sickening resemblance to the description one human writer made of heaven, the regions where there is only life, and therefore all that is not music is silence.
All that is not music is silent. Yes, of course, they think that it's all a front. They think that somehow what's really going on must be must be conceivable or describable in terms of interest.
Self-interest, yes.
Yes. Self-interest.
Mhm,
It has to be like that because that's the only way things really can be in the world.
mhm.
If you read libertarian writers, you'll see people who think this
Mhm.
and can conceive of everything as an economic transaction,
Yep.
including the family. Now he's going to go off on a massive and wonderful tangent. Monty, would you like to read this?
Okay. Music and silence, how I detest them both. How thankful that we should be that ever since our father entered hell, though no longer ago than humans, reckoning in light years, could express, no square inch of infernal space and no moment of infernal time has been surrendered to either of those abominable forces, but all has been occupied by noise, the grand dynamism, the audible expression of all that is exultant, ruthless, and virile. Noise which alone defends us from silly qualms, despairing scruples, and impossible desires. We will make the whole universe a noise in the end. We have already made great strides in this direction as regards the earth. The melodies and silences of heaven will be shouted down in the end. But I admit we are not yet loud enough, or anything like it. Research is in progress. Meanwhile, you disgusting little...
Here the manuscript breaks off and is resumed in a different hand. In the heat of composition, I find that I have inadvertently allowed myself to assume the form of a large centipede. I am accordingly dictating the rest to my secretary. Now that the transformation is complete, I recognize it as a periodical phenomenon. Some rumor of it has reached the humans, and a distorted account of it appears in the poet Milton, with the ridiculous addition that such changes of shape are a punishment imposed on us by the enemy. A more modern writer, someone with a name like Shaw, however, grasped the truth. Transformation proceeds from within and is a glorious manifestation of that life force which our father would worship if he worshipped anything but himself. In my present form, I feel even more anxious to see you, to unite you to myself in an indissoluble embrace. Signed, Toadpipe, for his abysmal sublimity, Under Secretary Screwtape, TEBS, etc. That is great. Shaw. C.S. Lewis takes up G.K. Chesterton's rivalry with George Bernard Shaw.
Right.
Shaw.
Shaw. And Milton does say that transmogrifications of shape are part of the punishment that God gives to the devils in casting them out of hell. But of course, they turn it around into something great, something wonderful. And he uses some of the wonderful warped versions of Christian spirituality that you will see in neo-paganism and some sectors of New Ageism, where it's all about transforming yourself. That's what it's all about. It's all about self-transformation, self. Me, 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 me. Me. All right, I have to get the character out of my head now. The spiritual dangers of acting.
Well, we have
Playing the
certainly
villain really
made
is too
progress.
much fun. Sorry, Monty?
We certainly made progress making loud noise.
Oh, yes. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And isn't that is, by the way, there's a whole magnificent sermon in that description, that the two holy sounds are music and silence.
Yeah.
That is just beautiful. And holy silence is truly holy. It's not an absence. It's so filled with God's presence that there doesn't need to be any sound. It's music. It's a silence that is a form of music.
Hmm.
Vince, you've joined us at just the right time. What is music? I'm going to unmute you. You don't have to.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't unmute him.
He's self-muting.
What has he done that I cannot unmute him? What is music?
It's actually kind of hard to define.
Yeah.
Emotions turned into
Sound,
sound.
sound.
That would be the post-romantic era definition. Bach would not agree with that definition.
Oh,
You don't think so?
No.
You didn't think there was emotion in music?
He,
I
he,
think
did,
much of it is very tailored.
he didn't think that's what it was all about.
No, but I mean, I think music originated when people were trying to express emotions that they could not express in words. And they began to try to find some other way to express these emotions. Like flutes, little wooden flutes that they would make.
You're assuming that humans invented music.
No, humans discovered music. The same way they discovered mathematics. They did not make.
Perfect.
You know, it actually occurs to me as you're saying, and I'm thinking, how did they get this? That we may have been imitating birds.
Oh, yeah,
that
that's
seems
good
like the
point.
most likely kind of a thing, or sounds that
Yeah. The anthropological theories fall into several categories. One of them are called la-di-da theories, which is the imitative one. And I forget what the others are called, but I'm going to suggest something much different than anthropological theories about how humans discovered music. The ancients believed, and this was a Greco-Roman belief, that Lewis uses to great effect in the Space Trilogy. This is the idea of the music of the spheres.
Music of the spheres.
Music of the spheres. The spheres are the planets.
Mhm.
And the idea in the ancient worldview was that the planets were all like concentric, enormous spheres in which other spheres were contained, and they went out forever. And the Earth, of course, was in the absolute middle, the Earth-centric view of things.
and flat.
No,
Wow.
nope. The Greeks and the Romans never believed the Earth was flat.
Oh,
No.
They not only knew that it was a sphere, they knew how big it was.
They knew how big it was. They knew the diameter. It's amazing.
Yeah, because of math.
So these spheres in their divine revolutions around the earth produced music.
Yes, they spoke to each other
Hmm.
in music.
Well, there's also the term the muses,
Yes.
which is another way of saying that musical inspiration, artistic inspiration comes from the divine.
Right. Yeah, the muses are gods. I can't remember how many of them there are. I think maybe 7.
Yeah,
That's the number. Calliope. Isn't Calliope the muse of music?
that could be. I don't know.
Not sure. Don't remember.
Vince is unmuted now. Let's hear what he has to say.
Vince is the musician.
Yes.
Calliope.
Calliope is the muse of music. Okay.
I heard it.
What do you think what do you think music is, Vince?
Sound which evokes emotions.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, when people play music, that's what music does. Definitely.
It's really hard to put words to what music is.
Yes, it is, because of the nature of the thing itself. Yeah.
Definitely an expression, I
Mhm.
say.
It's
You're
expressive.
expressing something.
Right.
I
What
heard,
what then is poetry?
what is poetry? What is poetry?
Peg wishes that she could be heard. Peg writes great poetry.
Music is like an orderly and emotive arrangement of sounds, arranging of sounds.
Excellent.
That's what I always think of it
Yeah.
as.
And poetry is the same thing, but it's words
Mhm.
instead of just sounds.
Yeah, the poet is trying to express or evoke emotions or feelings that are really difficult to put into words. So by the interplay of the words on the page, he's evoking, hoping to evoke some feeling.
But it's trying to show us something. Yes, music and poetry both have to do with feelings. They also have to do with ideas.
Mm-hmm.
The sound and sense of words.
We also mentioned melodies because it's not always present, but it's usually a driving force.
Right, right. And we say metaphorically, maybe, that our lives have rhythms.
Mm-hmm.
Don't they? That's a colloquial way of. Oh, wait, Bud is trying to lift up
Math.
math.
Ah,
Math, well, yes, that's
Yep.
the orderly part.
Right.
Ordering
Music.
sounds in its.
Yeah, math and music are very closely related. I mean, every musical sound can be expressed in formulae because
And
of
we seem to have affinity for that. I mean, it's kind of,
Yeah.
I mean, you pick up an empty Coke can and you tap on it with your fingernails and you begin to get a rhythm or you mess around with it. You just don't go bong, 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 bong. We just tend to do that.
You create.
I mean, how many songs have you played on your steering wheel lately while you were driving someplace?
Yeah, it is innate in us. Why might that be?
Ask God.
Mhm.
Bingo!
Yeah.
You are created in the image of likeness of God. And God, in creating the cosmos, wrote the music, composed the music of the spheres.
Yep.
Which we can relate to
Yeah.
because of the divine.
We are part of it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And we can choose to make our lives either music, orderly arrangements
Hmm.
of ourselves, or we can make noise.
Hmm.
Well,
And by
in
the
the
way,
womb, that's the first thing that we know is our mother's voice, the rhythm of her beating heart.
right,
We know life's rhythms
before we know
already.
any word,
Yeah.
before we know any sights, before we can even hear, we know the rhythms because they can be felt in the womb.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of excellent study about that. But we are part of the music of the sphere. Part of it.
That's a nice thought.
I like that. I have not heard that before, actually.
And I like what he has to say about noise
Yes.
being infernal, and
Yep.
what the devil wants is noise.
Right. And when we make music, by the way, we have to use silence,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Because there's,
Yeah.
notes are distinguished by what's between them.
Yeah. A teacher once said to me, everybody knows the dun 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 dun, but and thinks, wow, isn't that really great? But the thing that is really great is Beethoven knew the notes not to put in there.
Yes.
There, it is disciplined, it's orderly,
Right.
it's intentional, and he
Most-
it up by going overboard.
But we don't
Oh,
think.
wait, there's another message in the bud bottle. Whoa, the host, wait, you're moving it. Keep it
The
still.
host can unmute you,
But you're not muted.
Host can unmute you.
but you're not muted.
You don't seem to be muted.
I have unmuted you.
No, now you're muted.
Oh,
Muted.
Now he's
Now
on.
he's unmuted.
but we still can't hear you. There's something wrong with your
His
microphone.
microphone is down or off.
Turn it up,
Yeah, you're not muted.
make it
We're
loud.
really enjoying your facial expressions and body language, though. It's
I
added a
know.
great deal to our enjoyment of this hour.
Yeah. We don't see you often enough, and this much love in one
Yes.
dose is good. It's
All right.
brings some balance.
We will begin next week. We actually got through 2 today. We'll start at letter 33.
Oh, 33,
23.
23.
Oh, 23. So
That was skipping.
it's 2 X's and three I's.
Like Bud
Well-
says, it's math.
It's math, yes. The Lord be with you.
And with-
Thy spirit.
Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be
Hallowed
thy
be thy
name.
name.
Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory,
The glory.
forever and ever.
Amen.
Amen.
The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance before you and give you all the blessings of his peace. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost.